design all of the textiles. So all of the textiles they're designed by me, printed in America, and I can talk about that a bit more.
Yeah, I would love to touch on the corsettery of everything too, because how did you guys come to doing corsets? Because as someone who has a sewing background and has a nonna who's a seamstress, like, corsets are hard. They're hard. Like one of the hardest things to sew. Like, you have to know how to do boning, you have to know how to do like boning inserts, like it's not easy. Also rivets, like it's very, very technical, and you have such cool, interesting, beautiful art that you print. So what brought you guys to being like, let's be a corset brand?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my mom's training, like where she really excelled when she immigrated to this country, she worked for an Italian fashion designer for a very long time, and it's this old European craftsmanship, and because that's where she really excelled in her career as a tailor, and then eventually moving up to like managing the whole tailoring department, doing New York Fashion Week.
Icon.
Yes, no, truly, it's like it's a long lineage of the craftsmanship in my family, and then New York was just the perfect place to be for her to excel in that. And anyway, so we really were passionate about integrating this European craftsmanship into what we decided to do, which was corsets. And additionally, we chose corset because we, coming from this Slavic background, we're really interested in playing with like hyper feminine tropes, and there's nothing more feminine than a corset,
truly.
And I always talk about this in the terms of like, after the Soviet collapse, there was a lot of, I guess I should say my family's from Ukraine originally, but after the Soviet collapse, there was this wide open door to Western culture and Western styles and trends, and you know, post-Soviet women are notoriously, I think, known for then gravitating to these like really exaggerated feminine styles and looks. And so we were driven by that, essentially, to bring back and celebrate the feminine in this way.
I love that, especially because your brand is so female-led and so female-focused, to like play with these maybe even tropes of hyper-femininity. And I think you play with them because of the graphics.
Yes.
And a lot of your graphics, there's very hyper-feminine artwork and like female internet memes. And so let's talk a little bit about the patterns, just for everyone. She's wearing one of her corsets, and there's also more behind us with matching skirts. So I'm just gonna pull one out so we can like talk about the pattern on your corset.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I was like really interested in, I mean, I come from this arts background. I've shown in galleries, continue to show in galleries, and always printed on textiles. This is something like, it's almost like I had to leave home to discover that I love textiles, just like everyone else in my family. But with the specific imagery I'm using in the corsets and all the fabric design for the brand, I started to work with public domain artwork and combining them with present day or early internet like memes and GIFs and things like that. So like sort of imagine like the GIFs you receive from your aunt or your grandmother on like WhatsApp or text messages. They're a little bit corny.
They're so funny.
Yes. So and you know, these are like some of the images really were like images sent to me by like my aunt or whatever.
I love that. That's so funny.
And then working with public domain art, the specific art that I gravitate towards is artwork that has not been canonized within Western art history. So it's like maybe not necessarily artwork you would get to see in an art history class or a history class period.
Right.
So like this image of Salome holding the head of St. John the Baptist, like I'm gravitating towards this storyline about a woman who notoriously seduced a king through her dance, and then when he asked her, what would you like, she wished for the head of St. John the Baptist as a sort of
icon.
I'm gonna get you to turn your skirt a bit, just so that,
there we go,
because then you don't have to worry about it. There you go.
Perfect, thank you.
That's actually so iconic. I didn't know that story, that she asked for his head.
Yes. Yeah, so that's why I like playing with older art and conflating them with present day imagery, because I also love to point out that, like, you know, not much has really changed. Like, the human desire for, whether it's like human desires, passion, these stories of femme fatale, or, you know, like things that, although we're in the 21st century, like the storylines that drive humanity are still just as relevant.
Yeah, except that if I asked for somebody's head, I don't know.
No.
My husband would do.
No, but, you know, I forget the comedian's name who did that, like, piece holding Trump's head. I mean,
Kathy Griffin.
Yes, Kathy Griffin. Thank you. Like,
yes,
you know,
Kathy Griffin icon. So
yeah.
I think, yeah.
I mean,
trying to put she has orange hair.
Yes, and she's like holding this like bloodied head.
People got really mad about that.
They did.
Really mad.
It's
I remember that like people tried to cancel her for that.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Very provocative image. But, you know, if you think back to how people may have reacted this in, like, I don't know, 16th century, these were also like really graphic images at the time. So, but the thing is, it's not like by a Leonardo da Vinci, so we're not learning about it in schools. So I kind of want to like bring back excitement to art history, and I think one way to do it is using modern imagery alongside it.
It feels very feminist to me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
yeah, because there's so many pieces of art and stories like that are lost because they're so deeply feminine, and because there's so much about a female having power. And the only times I feel like we get females having power stories is if it leads to their demise.
It's very true. Yes, that's funny you mention that, because there is another I was like leaning towards using graphics of, oh my goodness, I'm gonna blank out on the name right now. Like I forgot her name, the martyr. I gotta like look this up. There's a very famous female martyr. And I kind of leaned back away from it because I do gravitate towards imagery of women in like an empowering position.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love that. I think that even like the meme culture and the internet stuff you use is like very, very fun. Like this like euphoric, probably orgasmic vampire on the front, and then on the back we have like sexy Japanese anime, and we have girls enjoying themselves on a boat. Like it's all so deeply feminine, or I think those are mermaids perhaps. Yes, they are mermaids. It's all so deeply feminine, and I think that like there's power when women take back the rhetoric around what's being feminine, and also like if we kind of like take it back and play with it in our own ways, it's an empowering. Because we're like taking images that were probably made through the male gaze and like flipping them and turning them into something we have, and then it becomes a female gaze moment rather than a male gaze moment. Yeah,
it's funny too, because so I like walk around in these corsets all the time, and if I'm walking outside, like I have to say 99% of the time I receive compliments from other women, and I find that like so fascinating, because I'm like, okay, like this is doing something. It's in communication with other women more so than like a guy checking me out at the bar, you know?
Yeah, it resonates with women, and that's so powerful and fun. Was that something that you had in mind when you were starting the brand and starting to build the fabrics for the brand, or did that just happen organically?
It happened organically. I will say, like, in my art practice, I work with like my own body a lot, and I like to kind of play with the male gaze in that way. So it probably intuitively seeped into the brand as well.
Like, I'm coming.
Yeah,
I'm coming from your art to your corsets. One of your brand slogan is "Art you can wear."
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think, and this is actually my drive as an artist. When I was in art school, I was like staging fashion shows, and I was like increasingly putting like mannequins in the galleries, and I always explain this to my mentors, like, well, I want to like create work that the regular public can understand, like a broader audience. And if you're someone who puts something on in the morning, you're making an active decision, what am I going to wear? Then you understand fashion. So if I'm combining fashion and art in a gallery, then like you're gonna get it. You're gonna understand.
Right. And you can engage with it.
Yes,
you
exactly.
can actually engage with art.
Exactly.
And like make it a part of your daily practice.
Yeah.
When you wear art.
Exactly. So for me, it was a natural progression to just start a brand.
I love that. And I love that you did it with your mom, and that it's very much about like family heritage and cultural heritage. I think a lot about this concept because I feel like the original art forms that were like females were allowed to do were largely like sewing, knitting. We were allowed to paint if we were wealthy, but not if we weren't. So the female art form that was like everyone could do was sewing.
It's true.
And so I really love this idea that it's you and your mother, and it's a female art form that's been passed on from like country to country to generation, and then you've taken your art practice, which is very much about like exploring femininity, and turned it into a wearable piece of art that women can interact with even if they're not wearing it.
Yes.
Like you said, women come up to you and be like, corset, like hello.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't just like create engagement through art, it creates like female engagement and female community.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful that your art does that.
Thank you so much.
So
that's like the biggest compliment.
I think that's so powerful, and I think that's so cool, and I think we need more of that.
Yeah.
And like even if we just look at fashion, like the biggest designers in the world are mostly men.
It's true.
But they're mostly making clothes for women.
It's very
right?
true.
So it's a really interesting dynamic that we've created in our culture. And so I think it's really powerful for female designers to explore femininity in such an interesting way, especially through old artwork.
Yes.
Like, I love that. And the internet, because the internet is so, you know, relevant and of our times.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, on a lot of your corsets, there is like messaging.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like different words and
yeah. Is that in Ukrainian?
That's in Russian.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't read the full thing. It's a little cut off, but I think it's a spokojnej noche, which is a good night.
Oh, that's cute.
But yes, I do. And some of them I have like even Arabic, and there's more Slavic here. But I guess I am driven to a lot of more like Slavic language in the pieces. I can pull out the one that also has like Arabic, just because I am interested in, because I approached the brand. So this one has some Arabic here, but there's like French too. So
yeah, I just saw that. I was like, oh, you think that's French, right?
Yeah.
That's so fun.
But the reason I'm very much enamored with language. I love to write too, but in terms of like using different languages, it comes from this drive to combine East and West in my work. Mm-hmm. Like my family being from Ukraine originally, from the Soviet Union, Ukraine directly translates to border, which of course is like very unfortunately relevant to today's issues, but it's because it's a border essentially. There's a lot of mix of East and West, and that influences my art, the brand. So I'm toying around with that a little bit, conflating the two.
I love that. And you guys literally changed places too. So to like bring your culture with you is really powerful and important too. I think like to know who you are is really important, and then to explore that in your work I think is really fun and interesting, and like you said, very relevant.
Yeah, I think when you're like if you look at art from those types of spaces, it's the thing that makes it unique is that it's like those places in the world where the cultures blend and it becomes its own unique thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's a very North American thing.
Yeah.
Which I really like. I mean, I think that's what's so beautiful about North America in general is that there's so many people from so many different places and cultures blend in a way they just don't blend in other places here. And that's why I think like it's so beautiful, the Americas. Like
I agree.
Yeah, Canada is very similar and well, different but similar.
Yeah.
There's people from everywhere and everyone like brings their culture with them.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, and that's why we have the best food too.
I agree. I mean, that's New York City. That's why so many immigrants have come here, and it truly is a melting pot. And I find that like because of that, people are also more, I don't know, accepting towards like different worldviews, and like there's a different, it's just It is unique. I love it too.
We call it a mosaic in Canada.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit like these are mosaics.
Yeah,
I would say.
I was gonna ask because there feels like almost like a religious connotation in a lot of the artwork that you use. And I was wondering if that was on purpose or like what you were exploring with that in your words.
It's so funny because you're not the first person to kind of like ask me similar question. Like I've had people ask me, "Are you Catholic?" And it's funny because I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm Jewish," but
you're like,
no. Like, I mean, I don't know. You know, there is this like, so in like Judaism, you can't worship icons. Because,
that's not allowed.
No, it's not. And so maybe that's why I am driven to imagery, because like when you're taught that from a young age, like I went to like Hebrew school and whatnot, maybe I'm driven to these images. And so a lot of them do come from this like Catholic.
That's so forbidden fruit of you.
It is. It is. But the funny thing is, like this one I was talking about, Salome, she's actually a Jewish woman
icon.
It's just that in Judaism, people didn't paint her. The Catholics did it. They did a great job.
The Catholics are like, icon.
Yeah, they're like, we got it. We got you.
I love that. That's so funny. This is just like a little kid story. I grew up very religious and we're in a very religious family. And I remember the biblical story that resonated the most with me was Samson and Delilah, where she cuts off his hair to take his power and like betrays him.
Yes.
And I remember being like, Delilah is so slay.
Yeah.
And I could not tell anyone in my family because they already were like, she's bad.
Yeah. You're like,
but I was like, that's so cool of her, for real.
No, yeah. I love that story, actually. Oh my gosh.
I want to be that for Halloween, but nobody will know.
Yeah.
How would they know?
Yeah.
I come with scissors and hair.
I'll make a corset.
Yeah, we should totally do a Samson and Delilah corset.
Yeah, 100%.
She's kind of a crazy. She was definitely a Scorpio.
Oh, the Scorpios are crazy.
I know because I am one. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a Scorpio lady.
That's a Scorpio lady if I ever met one. Yeah, no, that's interesting that you play with so much Catholic imagery or like Catholic adjacent imagery.
Yeah. I mean, I like the one I'm wearing is more like a Soviet realist painting, and that was driven by like, I don't know, because in the West we get more like Western art history. So I do toss like play around with different images, but yes, there is a lot of Catholic. I mean, I can't help it. Like I think that my favorite art historical pieces are like particularly from Italy or Dutch art. I use a lot of Dutch art, and the Dutch were freaky. Like, I don't know.
They were
like,
so freaky.
Yeah, I mean.
I went to a Dutch exhibition at the LACMA, I think last year, and I was like, freaks.
Yeah.
Freaks.
Like, I'm like talking like 15th century. Like, I have another piece, I don't think it's here, but of a nun chasing a cat that has like a dildo in its mouth. Like, or a presumed dildo. It's like a 15th century piece.
Presumed.
Yeah.
I bet it was.
I think it was. They had them then.
They had them, and they were just as debauched then as they are now. Let's be honest. They just could get away with it differently. There wasn't
100%.
There wasn't the same culture.
Yeah.
So that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, people don't. That's why I like playing with that type of artwork, because I'm like, we haven't changed that much. The humor is still there.
You just know that painter had an excellent sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like, they were fun at parties.
Yeah.
For sure. They were laughing at themselves and everyone else. And
yeah.
That's fun.
No, definitely.
I like that your art and your clothing has that playful quality as well.
Thank you.
Because I think that sometimes fashion takes itself too seriously.
Yeah.
So I love when a brand can kind of like has an element of humor. It's really fun, and I think it's more fun to wear and it's more fun to engage with.
Yeah, no, that's actually very important for me. Humor, like, I can't take myself too serious. You can't. It's like life, I don't know, life's too short.
For real though, it sounds like a trope, but it's not.
Yeah,
like, why not just laugh?
Yeah. I mean, that was like, I'm sure people, when they see this, they'll understand, like, one of my biggest influences is Vivienne Westwood, and I truly think, like, she as a designer captured that more effectively than most are able to. Like, it's the humor, the joy, and like, yeah, I mean, like, her first boutique was the sex shop, you know, like, with the huge letters, sex, like, you know, like, we need a breath of fresh air, yeah.
She was a punk,
like,
through and through, and you feel it and see it in her
Yeah.
brand identity for her entire life.
Yeah.
And she was always taking the piss, like, always, which was so fun to watch. Like,
Yeah.
that's why she was such an icon and will, like, live forever in fashion history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so cool. I love how you play with culture through your art and through your clothes. Like, it's so fun to watch, and these pieces are so fun. Like, hello, the layering potential too, so good.
Yes, yeah.
So good.
It's true. You can dress them up, dress them down, like,
so fun.